Bhavani Visha Sunyavari Pashtatara Satani Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare. Okay, Anupama Mavai, Anupama Gopika, you can begin. We're on page 290, just at the bottom there.
Okay. In the preface, we mentioned that In the preface, we mentioned that this book took inspiration from Sanatana Goswami's Brihad Bhagavad Mitra. Therefore, we were particularly stirred by Gopal Kumar's repeated determinations to attain a higher and higher perfection through the medium of his Gopala mantra. Yet the success of the young boy's aspirations were not solely his own. His mantra too would be the instrument of his success. On their second meeting, his spiritual master thus encouraged Gopal Kumara to chant attentively, saying, "Whatever you desire, Sankalpa, while chanting your mantra, by its power you will fully achieve." And so it was. Until this stage in his journey, Gopal Kumar's chanting had transformed his life and made him king of a southern city without his being aware of it. But after meeting his guru in Puri, he understood the power of his mantra. By chanting with increased and focused determinations, he became king of Puri, then an Indra in heaven, a member of the Prajapatis in Mahaloka, an association of the Kumaras in Tapaloka, a Brahma in Satyaloka, a visitor to the Brahmajyoti, a guest of the various Vaikuntha regions, and finally a brother to Sridham in Gokul Vrindavan. Readers may lose their breath reading the sentence above. We too were breathless, contemplating the power of Gopal Kumar's determined chanting, which pointed to an urgency in our personal chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and other Dikta mantras. Through his story's hero, Sanatana Goswami modeled the pilgrim's journey for all pure Vaishnavas. And however that journey plays out for us, we cannot help but be moved by the great Acharya's pronouncement. Loud and clear, he proclaims that we can expect to go back to Godhead only when we have a clearly defined goal to our sadhana, and when we take systematic steps towards their goal with sankalpas made gainful by faithful Nam Sankirtana. Thus, Gopal Kumar is an ideal example for this book. Sankalpa Kamudi. Readers who are not acquainted with Brihad Bhagavad Mitra and who are serious about their life's goals are hereby advised to study Gopal Kumar's journey and his sankalpas.
You can join us for those who are not. We are reading through that book on Thursdays, isn't it? So
yeah,
carry on.
As a further comment, after reading and studying Brihad Bhagavata Mitra many times, we would like to add that the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust publication of His Grace Gopi, what is that word, Prabhu? Gopi
Puranadana. Gopi Puranadana.
Gopi Puranadana. It's very long. I could read it. Prabhu's rendition of this classic is a gold standard, not even remotely approached by any other edition of the book. Another example from a Srimad Bhagavatam exemplifies a successful sankalpa in devotional service, but for the wrong goal. At the age of 5, Druhva Maharaja was offended by his father and in a childish way demanded a kingdom to surpass that of his forefathers, including Lord Brahma. Fortunately for him, Dhruva was of aristocratic stock and so had an unfailing determination, enabling him to live alone in the jungle, absorbed in austerity and mantra japa. Thus, within the space of 6 months, Dhruva attracted the attention of the Lord and received the pole star as his eternal residence. But when the Lord disappeared and Dhruva became the destined master of both the earth and the pole star, the boy was sorrowful. Sukha Goswami says, despite having achieved the desired result of his determination by worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord, Dhruva Maharaj was not very pleased. Thus he returned to his home. The reader may ask, why was Dhruva not pleased with such an incredible result? The answer is because in addition to his kingdom, Dhruva also received pure devotion from the Lord. Thus, with the perfect vision of an advanced Vaishnava, Dhruva lamented that he had stubbornly employed his touchstone mantra for trivial material goal. Here again, we see all the parts of a Sankalpa perfectly in place, except for one, Dhruva's goal. Because the boy's consciousness was impure, his motive was material, and thus he remains an example of neophyte devotee who worships Krishna for material gain. Dhruva Sadhaka's status is confirmed by Rupa Goswami and Srila Prabhupada. That said, readers should note that after seeing the Lord, Dhruva was no longer a practitioner, but a pure devotee of the highest caliber. Dhruva's example as a sadhaka should be a sobering one, especially in light of the words of Gopal Kumar's guru. Whatever you desire while chanting your mantra, by its power you will fully achieve. If our desire is impure, we will attain a material goal, not bhav. The Hare Krishna mantra and our Diksha mantras are very powerful. They will fulfill whatever we aspire for in devotional service, be that aspiration material or spiritual. For example, if a devotee does Nam Sankirtana while meditating on sensual enjoyment, desire within his heart the opulence of the demigods, his mantra may well elevate him to heaven to enjoy along with its denizens. Such a result is far from the goal of a pure devotee. Reader, be warned. Another example that the devotee should not emulate, but rather learn from, is that of Chota Haridas. For the offense of gazing lustfully at a woman, Lord Chaitanya banned the renunciate from his association. Unable to placate the Lord for a whole year, Chota Haridas was determined that life without Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was useless, and so he committed suicide by drowning. And while he attained an angelic body in which at night he sang for the Lord, Srila Prabhupada considered this spiritual atonement too extreme for the current time. Instead, His Divine Grace proposed the atonement be attained by the power of determination in devotional service. He would quote Lord Krishna's words, "He, the devotee who has sinned, but who is humbly repentant, quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes." Still, Chota Haridas remains an example of how resolute a practicing devotee should be in his Sankalpa. Dhruva is an example of determination for a material goal. Chota Haridas is an example of determination for bhav. The last spiritual example is Maharaj Citraketu. We start with the time before he attained perfection in sadhana, when Narad was instructing him on the process of devotional service. The king had lost his only son to the poisonous envy of his barren wives and was beside him with grief when Rishi Narad and Angara appeared. When the king was calm and ready for spiritual guidance, Narad initiated him with the mantra. After chanting the mantra with the proper Sankalpa, like Gopal Kumara, Maharaj Citraketu attained perfection. But unlike the boy, the king did so very quickly. This example is therefore given to show that Nam Sankit, when chanted with the right determination, can give fast results to the qualified sadhaka. The following verse depicts the king's initiation and the swift timeline with which he was promised perfection. The great sage Narad continued, "My dear king, attentively receive from me a mantra which is most auspicious. After accepting it from me, in 7 nights you will be able to see the Lord face to face." Sukdev Goswami continues to describe the detachment and other devotional practices taught to the king by Narad. He then assures us that Narad's words did come true, and that after a week and a few days, Maharaj Citraketu attained the lotus feet of Antadeva. This is an example of how one with faith in the word of one's guru and in the sadhana he prescribes quickly reaps the fruit of determination.
Okay, let's just pause there. Let's It's an example. Someone's phone's ringing there. Hare Krishna. So some examples from our Srimad Bhagavatam, and also from, of course, we had Bhagavatam Rita. Any specific points that strike you here in this reading, this section?
I wanted to ask a question.
Yes.
You know, when Dhruva Maharaj, say anyone being a neophyte, they desire things and they ask for Krishna certain things, or even when they're chanting, they desire things. As they mature in their devotion, then if these desires are fulfilled, then how does one go?
You're saying, yeah, as they, like, for example, Dhruva's Maharaj's, Dhruva's desires were fulfilled. So you're asking, how did they go? How did
like say, how does a devotee, a neophyte devotee, would desire things, different things, and as they make spiritual advancement, then they don't want those desires. They want different things. They desire different things, but you're going to get what you've desired.
Well, it's not exactly like that. It's not exactly like every thought or every desire that you've ever harbored is going to be fulfilled through chanting of the touchstone of the holy name.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so don't worry about that. But if that's why the point we wanted to bring out here, there should be a specific sankalpa within our heart when we are chanting. There should be a specific desire. Yeah. Although, as we discussed many times, of course, we desire to go back to Godhead, and we desire to attain Bhava and Prema, but that might be absent in our chanting because we get quite familiar with our chanting. So that's what's coming across here. We should make sure that our heart is in the mantra and we're desiring the right thing. You know, we're desiring Bhava, we're desiring to establish that loving relationship with Krishna. So with Dhruva, he was chanting mantra. Anyone know what mantra he was chanting?
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva.
That's it, yeah. That was a mantra he was given by Narad. But his heart, as he was chanting the mantra, his heart was desiring, as we know, a kingdom bigger than Lord Brahma. He was some, you know. So the Maha Mantra is being mentioned here as being a touchstone, and also the Diksha mantras as well. The Gayatri Mantras, specifically there in the Gayatri Mantras, you have the word calm, which does mean desire. So I remember Satyananda Maharaj mentions that point in his book on the Gayatri. He mentions exactly what Srila Maharaj mentioned here. Reader, be warned when we're chanting these mantras. So interesting with Dhruva, like he came to the platform of pure devotion, which the only thing he's happy doing is hearing and chanting. But now he has to manage a whole planet and the whole universe. So, but because he's pure, then he will manage it in the Krishna conscious way. So it won't be an impediment to his Krishna consciousness. But that's the idea, Mohabchandravali, and that's what should happen, is that our desires should become purified and change. Our initial reasons for coming to Krishna consciousness should not be the reasons we stay in Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Because generally we're coming for Chatur Vata Bhajantinam, one of these 4 reasons mentioned in Bhagavatam. So by contact with devotees, by contact with Srimad Bhagavatam, there should be a transformation of desire from material to spiritual. Yeah.
Muli, can I just add in there?
Yes, please.
I was just wondering, like Tadavali Mataji was asking the question, like as you keep on, you doing your sadhana, and I think you ask in your heart what you ask, whatever you want, and then I think as the time goes by, you're quite satisfied. You don't need anything. Then you're maturing your Krishna consciousness, and then I think it's just at the end, then you just want, as you said, Bhava and Prema. Am I right in thinking like that or not?
Yeah, I mean, that's in essence, I mean, that's the life of devotee. Like we learn to live and to be satisfied with what's been set aside as our immediate quota. And we're not like materialists, we're not desiring this and not desiring that, So we're happy.
Yeah.
We've got, Krishna's given us a situation by which we can maintain our sadhana. But as you correctly said, we do continue desiring. I mean, desire is a natural function of the soul, and you cannot stop desiring ever. It's just the nature of what you desire. So this is what this whole study is about. Is I think Maharaj is trying to wake us up to carrying desire in the forefront of our heart while we're engaging our japa and engaging our devotional activities. And then Krishna is going to fulfill that. So you can go back to Godhead if you desire to. If you don't, you won't. But the desire, as we know, then we can bring in, we've had quite a bit of discussion on the subject of greed as well. That's there. I don't know if it answered your question, Baba Sundati Priya, but
yeah, it did. But I think just like as you're saying that go back to Godhead, provided we have zero here, we just finished completely, then we are reliable. We are able to go up there. That's what Prabhupada says.
Yeah.
Nothing, So.
Yeah, the word is a kinchana gochara, which means we are materially exhausted. There is nothing in this world that's going to bring us happiness, and we should be.
Okay.
And we should be convinced of that. There is no material arrangement. And even Maharaj is mentioning here, we have to be careful because I don't think Prabhupada said that. He said about his followers that most of them, that quote sometimes you hear, that most of them will go back to the heavenly planets.
Yeah.
Then I go back to the heavenly planets or go to the heavenly planets. Yeah, so we have to be careful. We have to be careful. And I mean, that's why, the nature of our aspiration will change according to what we're hearing and chanting about, or who or what we are associating with. So if we're associating with pure Vaishnavas and we're hearing about the wonders of Raj, we're hearing about the beauty of Krishna and the wonderful services of the resonance of Vrindavan, then that naturally is going to have effect on us. And that's the type of, that will then become our cherished, inner cherished desire. Yeah. But we have to be careful because we're conditioned souls, so it's easy for us to, even as we're on the devotional path, it's sometimes we can, our desires can get mixed up again in the material world. Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, I got one more thing about Dhruva Maharaj as well.
Yeah.
So as you matured, does one, like we were saying, or you desire to go back home, or you desire to develop prema? So when Dhruva Maharaj got prema, then he was like, felt bad that why did I desire things like that? So do you desire to go back home? Or do you desire...
Well, you desire, but it's not in the sense of, it's not in the mood of desiring liberation.
Yeah.
But I want to go back home because it's going to be it's quite nice place, that Goloka Vrindavan. It's quite a cushy place, So I want to go back home.
Serve the Lord.
No, you just when we say go back to Godhead, that's you could say that's an overarching statement, but actually a desire of a devotee is just to serve Krishna.
Yes.
And the best place to serve Krishna happens to be in the spiritual world. So that's why devotees desire to go back, because they get full facility to serve Krishna to their heart's content. They're not desiring to go back because it's nice weather there or you never die. That's desire for liberation. So that's also, Rupa Goswami speaks quite about that. He calls it the desire for liberation, what's here, and also is it liberation and happiness, I think, or sense, is like two witches on the path of devotion. He speaks quite strongly about it.
Yeah.
And the nectar of devotion. So desire is a very subtle thing as well, as we know. It's not like your arm, you know, hand is gross, you know. You got a hand, it's quite gross. Desires, thoughts, and feelings is subtle. So being subtle is easily influenced. It's easy influenceable. So that's why we have to kind of associate with devotees, and we have to read and hear about the right things. You know, that's why I have to be careful. I mean, my spiritual master mentioned this. That's we shouldn't. Devotees don't. Remember, we spoke about this in Sutta Bhakti Chintamani a long time back. Where if one is like watching mundane movies and exposing themselves to the, you know, movies and things like that, and it creates gross, actually, not subtle gross, but it creates all these different weeds, all these different desires, you know. You know, I know for personally speaking, I have to be careful. There's certain things I was desiring before I took up Krishna consciousness when I was young, when I was a teenager. So I'd be careful that I don't go there again and watch the things I used to watch, because I know those desires are just sitting there waiting to jump out at me. And like, you know, and bewilder me. So we have to protect our Bhakti Lada Bija as well. We have to protect it. It's just the same as you protect you know, you have a plant at home. Is that all right?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's a big yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Some thought came, and when Srila Prabhupada, please correct me if I'm saying something wrong. When Srila Prabhupada heard Jananda Prabhu's departure, he did said, okay, he has gone back home, back to Godhead. But if he had had a small desire, then he would have gone to demigod planets, and from there he will go. So trying to understand sometimes, but we say, okay, if we go there, we can't go anywhere, we have to come down. But this is what Srila Prabhupada said, so we have to accept the
Yeah,
principle.
well, that's good to bring it up. That is mentioned there. It is mentioned, and Prabhupada said it there. That's Krishna's kind of grace and mercy.
Mercy, yeah.
In other words, one will go to the heavenly planets, and they will exhaust themselves.
Okay.
They will exhaust themselves and become desirous of not living that sensuous life. They will be desirous of Krishna consciousness. Yeah, if they're coming from a strong Krishna conscious practice, but they've still got the ghosts of, you know, sensual attraction or material enjoyment, then Krishna, out of his kindness for the service that the devotee has rendered, will arrange for these devotees to fulfill these desires. But as the verse says in Bhagavatam, but he will arrange it in such a way that one doesn't desire them things again. One, we said this saying, my mother used to say this, fed up to the back of the teeth. Fed up to the back of the teeth. Interesting saying. So that's the idea. I mean, they go to the devotees who go to heavenly planets, at some point they're going to become fed up. Because there's no happiness in sensual, ultimately, not compared to the happiness they experience. Actually, there's more happiness in washing the pots and there is in essential delights of the heavenly planets. Devotees are going to realize that when they're there, so they're going to become a Tama Kinchana Gochara, fed up. They also be repentant as well. Be repentant, they'll be fed up, repentant. Of course, if they get into the association of the wrong demigods, that's another story. And if they get, because there's different types of devotees, different types of aspirations. So this material world, it's you're taking the chances wherever you go until you get back to Godhead. Even there's stories of devotees who become demons, you know, and end up, you know, become demonic because of wrong association. So
God, that is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. That is.
yeah. So thank you for that interest. It's a good point. Yeah. Prabhupada wrote that letter to Jayananda Prabhu. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the first letter he wrote about him, I think he said he's gone back to the heavenly planets, as far as I remember. But then when he heard about the details of his devotional service, which was relayed to Prabhupada, and he said, "Oh, then he's gone back to Godhead," as far as I understand. Because Jayananda Prabhu wrote letters to Prabhupada about wanting to get married, and Prabhupada allowed him to get married. He had desires for marriage and things like that. So,
Did you say Prabhupada didn't allow him?
no, Prabhupada allowed him. Yeah,
Allowed.
yeah,
Allowed him, yeah. Okay,
yeah,
okay. No, I didn't hear that properly, Prabhu. That's what I asked.
yeah. But then when Prabhupada heard about his devotional, his selfless, pure devotional service, then he concluded, oh, he's gone back to Godhead, as far as I know. Right?
Because even if he had the desire to get married, I mean, as he became so sincere, that would go.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's nothing. As long as it's managed in a certain way. I mean, that's the idea. Like, it's the Grihastha ashram. If it's managed, has to be managed. That material desire, if it's managed in the right way, and it's done under religious principles, then it's going to be therapeutic, and it's going to free you from it. You know.
Plus, you could get into that state, get married because you wanted to, and then really get fried out and say, okay, never again, like that. Really get.
Yeah, well, that's the. I mean, like, even if you don't get fried out, you're going to become detached from it. I mean, that should hopefully be the result of it. That you become, you become more attached to Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. You know, that's the idea.
I was thinking, Prabhu, Acharya sees, okay, how he's going to learn the lessons. Because I was thinking about my Guru Maharaja's story, because temple president in USA, temple president's wife said, you won't go back to Godhead if you don't get married, Japataka.
Yeah. Yes.
And he was so upset. He went to Srila Prabhupada and he said, this is what they are saying. Now what should I do? So Srila Prabhupada said, you wait. I will let you know in due course of time what you should be doing.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. So this is during Prabhupada's time.
Yeah.
One Prabhupada disciple was told by his superiors that unless he gets married, then he won't go back to Godhead.
No, to my Guru Maharaj only.
Maharaj.
Yeah.
Oh.
He said, you have to you have to get married.
So that was a mistake on their behalf, that's for sure. They made a misjudgment there.
Because he was a bhakta, and he doesn't know, only initiated, and he went and said, oh, this is what they are saying, now what will I do? And then Srila Prabhupada said, you wait, I'll tell you what to do.
Yeah. So he did the right thing. He did nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a test. That was a test for Japataka. Of course.
Soon after 21, he's sannyasi.
Yeah.
Oh, Krishna.
Right. So, Kunamai, you like to read now? We're on 295.
Yeah.
Below the 4 asterisks.
We now move on to some examples of Sankalpas exhibited by our acharyas, beginning with Lord Brahma. After describing to Vidur the 9 different natural creations and the 10th, the demigods, Maitreya goes on to explain how time overlaps these creations from the atom to the creator. But before explaining the workings of time, the wise friend of Vyas comments, now I shall describe the descendants of the Manus, the creator Brahma, as the incarnation of the passion mode of the personality of Godhead, create the universal affairs with unfailing desires in every millennium by the force of the Lord's energy. In this verse, Brahma is described as having Amoga Sankalp, unfailing desires, or an unfailing determination to create. What is especially interesting about Brahma's creative service is that he repeats the process of creation almost 40,000 times during his life. The conditioned mind may find such responsibility too repetitive to be interesting, but not Brahma. The word amoga also means spotless, invincible, and infallible. In addition to always remaining enthusiastic in creating the universe, Brahma does it well, without rival and to completion. Therefore, although a devotee may sometimes feel disheartened by the repeated attempts needed to succeed in determination or in the difficulties posed in moving on to the next, he should take heart from the example of our Creator. In the way that Brahma receives empowerment from the Lord, so too does a sincere devotee. Krishna's own words confirm, but those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have.
If you just pause there a minute, Kunamai. So this is interesting, isn't it? I've never thought about this before, contemplating this. As I read the book before, I forgot this part. So within the life, so Lord Brahma, if I got this right, 40. So he lives for 100 of his years, and at the end of each day, he goes to sleep, and there's a partial annihilation of the material universes. And when he wakes up, he has to start the whole process again. He has to create a whole show again. You know, so he's done it at least here 40,000 times during his life. I don't know if the numbers equate. So you get to hear this word is used, amoga sankalpa, which means he's just highlighting Brahma's continued enthusiasm and in creating the universes. So that's what's been encouraged for us. You know, sometimes we may feel disheartened, Maharaj is saying, but we should remember the example of Lord Brahma. In one sense, you can picture like sometimes, isn't it? We have to chant japa every day, isn't it? And you ever pick up your japa beads and think, oh God, oh God, you got to do the whole thing again for 2 hours, you know. You've been doing it every day for 10, 20, 30, 35, 40 years. You know. You got to pick up, again, it will be determined again. So perhaps we can pray to Lord Brahma for the Amoga Sankalpa, you know, in the enthusiasm he had to create 40,000 times. Can let my little Lord Brahma, please let me be just as enthusiastic to control my mind every day.
Nice praise.
Yeah.
It's funny in the morning when you're chanting in the morning, it's like, okay, but if you're doing service and then you go to chant your runs later on, then it's like, oh, okay, you know, it's going to take longer, you know.
Yeah, according to physical. Yeah.
It's fun. It's really fun. It's like, you don't feel.
Gopi Gita just coming in. I guess she must have been out stranded in the other Zoom.
No, she was there before.
Oh, actually, she's coming in. Okay. So yeah, I thought I'd just pause there. The interesting Amoga Sankalpa. It's a good word to remember. Amoga Sankalpa. That's the type of Sankalpa we need in chanting the holy name. Yeah.
Just don't want my job.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Continue, Mother Kunamai.
Let us move to a more current time and a more immediate predecessor, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. As a young man, the Acharya took a vow to chant 1 billion names at the rate of 192 rounds a day. His purpose was to attain the purity and empowerment needed to fulfill Lord Chaitanya's prophecy of taking Krishna's holy names all over the world. While this was a one-off Sankalpa, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had to dedicate almost 10 years to its completion. This example provides inspiration for a devotee to remain fixed in the order of the Lord and in the inevitable efforts required to bring that order to fruition.
Fruition.
In this regard,
Go on, carry on.
In this regard, Rupa Goswami gives us 6 important qualities to cultivate. They are as relevant to Sankalpa as they are to the sadhana in general. One of the 6 we should specially keep in mind: patience. There are 6 principles favorable to the execution of pure devotional service: being enthusiastic, endeavoring with confidence, being patient, acting according to the regulative principles such as Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, abandoning the association of non-devotees, and following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. These 6 principles undoubtedly assure the complete success of pure devotional service. Contemplating Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's example, we can see how our Param Guru perfectly embodied these principles for the attainment of his goal. Following in the footsteps of his spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada displayed those same qualities in fulfilling the order given to him, namely to take Krishna consciousness throughout the English-speaking world. Although spiritually fulfilled, living in Vrindavan, Srila Prabhupada ventured to a strange land and in the space of 12 years empowered those who knew nothing of Bhakti Yoga to help him in a global effort that continues to this day. Srila Prabhupada's father called him Abhaycharan, and in his Sankalp to realize the disciplic succession's will, Srila Prabhupada showed, among other qualities, absolute fearlessness, abhaya. Devotees often find that the path to loving devotion is fraught with daunting circumstances. We may therefore take inspiration from Srila Prabhupada, who came to the West alone, and from Brahma, who was tasked with his service while being the only living entity in the universe. They were both on a lonely mission. There were many individual steps to the fulfillment of Srila Prabhupada's goal of a worldwide Krishna conscious movement. One of his taking sannyas in 1959, it was a decision prompted by multiple dreams in which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was calling him towards renunciation. Srila Prabhupada's preaching would be incomplete without sannyas. He said, "My godbrother insisted to me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher." There were other, more worldly challenges to Srila Prabhupada's venture: getting passage aboard the Jalduta, acquiring a passport, and receiving government clearance to travel were just some. Each required a determined effort, and each brought Srila Prabhupada closer to the West. And then there was the adventure across the Atlantic, in which Srila Prabhupada had to face heart attacks without any medical attention. But in what appeared to be Srila Prabhupada's darkest hour, Krishna came to reassure him of the success of his journey and in its purpose. A final example was Srila Prabhupada's daily regimen of rising at 1 in the morning to translate and comment on Srimad Bhagavatam, a cornerstone of his mission in giving the world the means of self-realization.
Pause there.
These are but
Just
some of the Sankalpas.
Just pause there a minute. If anyone's got any questions or comments on this, just time really went quick today. It's nearly just gone 6:45. So
I really like the point of lonely mission. Srila Prabhupada and Brahma, they both were on a lonely mission.
Yeah, Brahma was, yeah,
They
was
both
on his
they both
own.
struggled lonely.
Yeah,
They
as-
didn't have any support.
yeah. That's why I'm sure we're all familiar with the Lilamrita by Satsru Das Goswami Maharaj. Very nicely describes Prabhupada and his life before coming to the West. But to see that Prabhupada had this determination, absolutely determination. And if you read the Lilamrita, you can see he had many trials. It wasn't easy for him.
Mm.
It wasn't easy at all to actually, wasn't easy for him to come to the West. He had to go, and he's taken sannyas. It's a whole history there. And it's very interesting, very inspiring.
Like he said, Krishna was with him all the time, so he wouldn't be so
Fearless.
Yeah. I've just lost the page. I've been moving this page.
298.
Yeah,
298.
it's 298. Okay, yeah.
Muli Prabhu, you know what we were just talking about? I think when what Prabhupada has to go through is that's what it is, the austerity you do, what achievement you get, and that's what Prabhupada received, achieved.
Yeah, nothing comes cheaply.
Yeah,
Actually,
easy.
especially in devotional service. I mean, devotees who achieve wonderful results in their, say, let's say, devotional outreach, say, for example, Prabhupada preaching, let's just give that example. Then if you could see what they've done before that and the different austerities that they have actually gone through, you can see this is the fruit of it. This is the fruit. Yeah. It is not like a walk in the park.
No, you appreciate them, what they've been through.
Yeah. And again, in that sense, that's why Krishna's mercy, in one sense, it's more appreciated when you go without it for some time. When you have to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's why he's very expert in that. The mercy he gives devotees, it comes at a time after some arduous struggles, perhaps even some setbacks. But then when Krishna bestows his mercy, it becomes more relishable. Yeah. So with Prabhupada, same. With Prabhupada tried many different avenues and ways for preaching, and then finally, he was, even when he first came to the West, he often contemplated going back to India. I think every week he would go to the docks to find out when the next boat is going. And then the person he would see would ask him, so are you going to, I forget who said, but then Prabhupada, okay, let me stay another week. Stay another 2 weeks. So you had the underlying, So anyway, so these are dramatic stories, Prabhupada, Lord Brahma, but we can see how it applies to us in our little world, in our little world, in our little universe, and we're trying to attain something absolutely magnificent. That means bhava and prema in our little world. Yeah. So we might not be, going to continents and spreading Krishna consciousness in another continent, etc. But we are trying to achieve something absolutely wonderful. So we shouldn't expect it to come easily. It's not going to come easy. It's going to, but we do here, we're learning that we should, like Prabhupada and like Lord Brahma, we should be, and this verse was quoted, isn't it? That was it, yeah. Utsaham nishtaya tatta kama pavatana sangatagato vriti satpe bhakti pranishyati. So it's very important verse here by Rupa Goswami, especially in achieving the goal of Krishna consciousness. You could say we have to be very enthusiastic, just like Lord Brahma was. And Prabhupada was also very enthusiastic. But at the same time, there was also confident as well. At the same time, patience has to be tempered with patience, tempered with the understanding, but it's by Krishna's grace then I will be successful or not. So we cannot be feverish. We have to be patient. Yeah. That's where required. There's a quality that's required to practice pure devotional service. Because we could, other aspects we could bring out, as we know in our studies of nectar devotion, that because prema controls Krishna, Krishna doesn't give it out. He doesn't give it out like candy floss. He's gonna, because it's gonna, it's it's the most exalted thing to be obtained within the whole of creation. But by Lord Chaitanya's grace, we have been graced with the path to obtain it. And that's Lord Chaitanya's grace and mercy. Yeah. Any other points on that? We can read a bit more. Let's read to the end of the here, because it mentions, Prabhupada mentions Jayananda here, and we just spoke about him. So it'll be interesting what's going to be said about him and his achievement. So you can continue reading, Mara, just to the end of the 4 asterisks.
There are but some of the Sankalpas that Srila Prabhupada took to realize the overarching and very difficult determination to do justice to Lord Chaitanya's prediction that Krishna's name would resound throughout the world. In every town and village, the chanting of my name will be heard. And the prediction has now come to pass through the medium of Srila Prabhupada and the grace of the Lord. As Prabhupada narrates in 1968, on the first day of my sannyas, I never thought, but I remembered that I'll have to speak in English. I remember on that sannyas day that there was a reception. So I first of all spoke in English. So it is all the arrangement of Krishna, higher authority. While not in the category of the acharyas mentioned above, Jayananda Prabhu is certainly regarded by the members of the ISKCON as a saint. Srila Prabhupada requested his disappearance to be marked on the Vaishnava calendar and that his picture be on Rath Yatra cards. When they roll through the cities of the world, they accolades speak for them. Accolades speak for themselves. And while Jayananda Prabhu is remembered primarily for his dedication to realizing Rath Yatra, there is another example that we would like to share in order to highlight his Sankalpa. Jayananda was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away in 1977. While Srila Prabhupada was still present on the planet, he had vowed that he did not want to take medication that would in any way dull his consciousness and obstruct his ability to remember Krishna. And he was in great pain that increased as his condition deteriorated. Still, he refused medication until the last. That was an example of resolute determination, which today may be considered extreme, but which in another way may be no less than the willpower required for us to attain Vrajbhav.
Oh,
I've probably heard that detail of this before, but I've forgotten it. That leukemia is a cancer of the blood, isn't it? As far as I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, he was in great pain we cannot imagine. And when he means medication, it generally means that would mean what's it called? What's that drug? Morphine.
That's
generally. Oh, you'd know. Yeah, it's morphine. Take your mind from away from the extreme tormenting pain. But here's the determination of Jayananda. He actually didn't want. He refused it. So
with morphine, you get hallucinations.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's like heroin.
Can you imagine when you have a little pain and you say, "Oh, paracetamol, please"?
Yeah, I can remember my father when he was in his last days. He was always after some more morph.
Yeah.
So he was always wanting more of it.
Prabhu, I just wanted to say, if I sometimes unbearable pain, if I don't take that paracetamol, I can't think properly. So in that way, it's taking paracetamol is helpful.
Yeah, so I mean, as Marge said at the end, that was quite extreme, and
Yeah. Of course, I'm not
a very
comparing.
extreme example. So something what his mind make that something it's called something called a living will, you know, where you write down what you want at the last stages of your life if you can't communicate, you know.
Mm.
So it might, you know, that would be there. But as far as our health, we have to be responsible for our health, and it's up to the individual. If you find it intolerable, a headache, something like that, and you can take something to get rid of the headache, you should do it, you know.
I
As
feel down and the Prabhu
we
is
should be
also like,
we should be responsible to maintain good health. But then that's something we may have to decide. That's something we want to think about at the last stage of life. Do we want to be kept on the life support machine? Do we want big things stuck down our throat? You know, I know my grandma's often spoke about that in the past, about the importance of writing a living will. But anyway, let's just take the example of Jayananda. He was absolutely determined. And yeah, I remember when I was first joined 1990, Keshavati Maharaj was the temple president, and he was a good friend of Jayananda Prabhu. And he would tell, and each year on Jayananda's disappearance, he'd tell these amazing stories of Jayananda, where he was the one who Keshavati Maharaj saw him arched over in excruciating pain one day in the corridor. And Keshavati was horrified, and he went up to him and saw and pleaded with him, there's something seriously wrong with you. Jayananda, who's his good friend, he said, yeah, and he lifted his arms up, and it was all blood clots all over the underneath of his body, you know. So Jayananda, and this was before the Rath Yatra. Jayananda made Keshavati Maharaj vow not to tell anyone until after Rath Yatra. So that's why when you look at the picture that's on the Rath carts, Jayananda is in ecstasy with his arms in the air, standing in front of the Rath cart in complete ecstasy. That photo is taken after that. That is the Rath Yatra, which he told Keshavati Maharaj not to tell anyone. And then after the Rath Yatra, then it came to light. He kind of made it public, and you see pictures of him in a wheelchair. But during that, he was feeling no pain. He was feeling ecstasy. Jagannath, you can imagine how much ecstasy he was in. So
it's nice to speak on Rath Yatra time.
Yeah, so think of that. We can think of that next time when the Rath Yatras are coming up soon, or as
It's
of
all
September.
Rath Yatra now.
Yeah, Kayananda and his determination. So let's pray for him as well. Let's pray that we can be determined to keep our consciousness on Krishna. By the time, I think we started a couple of minutes late. So, but anyway, the time is 7 o'clock.
Where are we? What page?
Yeah, good question, because I've been
9.
Let us move. Yeah, let us move.
Yeah, so we stopped at before asterisks. So 299. So wonderful reading, isn't it? Wonderful reading. I always feel inspired by reading this about determinations of spiritual life. So let's try and meditate, especially how we can apply this determination and also be inspired again by Lord Brahma. He's creating 40,000 times. You know,
Oh my God. Yeah.
Amolga Sankalpa. Try and remember that word. Amolga San, like a determination that continues, continued determination to obtain success in spiritual life.
So Prabhu, whatever we do, is it good to? It's always good to make sankalpa. Whatever we do.
Well, Sankalpas means determination. We should always be, as this study is teaching us, we should always be on the lookout to make advancement from where we are.
Sankalpa means like a vow, isn't it? No?
Yeah, Sankalpa is like an internal determination to achieve. Yeah, so we should always be on the lookout to not stay where we are, but to move forward. And remember, we've also read about being careful what we're meditating upon when we're chanting the holy name, when we're chanting our Gayatri Mantras. You know, we should remember we spoke about also put our heart, try and, you know, when we're chanting, put the heart of our aspirations into the chanting. Yeah. So we're chanting, and what's coming out is we're asking for Krishna, for service broadly, and for his grace and mercy. We're not just mechanically chanting our rounds to get it done by a certain time. We're actually, yeah, it's a prayer. Yeah. All right, we're paused there for today, and tomorrow, for those who join us tomorrow, we got our continued questions and answers on Sudha Bhakti Titamani. So look forward to that. Right. Thank you for joining us. I should send, yeah, I'm the link person, so I'll be sending the link tomorrow. So look out for that. Okay. So thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
It's great. Muli Prabhu ki. Yes. Thank you.
Jai.
All the Vaishnavas ki